morning everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the NLBC News. Today we have some very exciting stories, and we're going to butcher all the words. So today, we'll go ahead and get started with our first story. Communication from the outside world. Scientists find a way to speak with people who are sleeping and dreaming. Dreams are known to the scientists that study them as mysterious and extremely hard to understand how they are formed. But recently, some scientists have conducted some tests where they were able to communicate with people who are sleeping and dreaming. The scientists worked with 36 individuals in experiments across 4 different laboratories, and conducted experiments where they used spoken audio, flashing lights, and physical touch to communicate with the sleeping participants. This was all done during REM sleep, the deepest stage of sleep, and was monitored using EEG instruments. The sleepers were asked to answer answer questions such as simple math questions, to count flashing lights or physical touches, and to respond to yes and no questions. The way participants responded was through eye movements or facial muscle movements agreed in advance, and confirmation of the lucid dreaming state was done in a blinded fashion, with sleeper responses needing to be agreed on by several witnesses. And when I say eye movements, it's not the movements of the eyeballs, like when your eyes are closed, like scrunching your eyes, if they're just like relaxed and then you scrunch them, your eyelids kind of compress. It's kind of eye movements like that. For this to kind of work and, produce results, there's a lot that must line up in an experiment like this. When the communication by scientists happens, the participant must be in a lucid dreaming state and be experiencing and aware that they are in a lucid dreaming state. They then must understand the question or problem and be able to knowingly respond in a before agreed upon manner. Then, several witnesses need to agree the answer was indeed done knowingly, and was correct. Despite these high barriers to success, though, across 57 sleep sessions, at least one correct response to a query was observed in 47% of the sessions where lucid dreaming was confirmed by the participant. One participant reported that during a dream, the lights in their dream started to flicker and recognized it as a Morse code for the number 4. The participant then communicated this to the outside observers using eye signals. Just think, in the future you may be able to communicate with people inside a dream and have them communicate with you. So now when you are sleeping and your partner can ask if you want a number 1 or the number 6 from Wendy's, and you can answer while sleeping. Talk about efficiency. Or it become more sinister, and you could be sleeping at an airport and then a message comes over the intercom and you start seeing advertisements for Ray-Ban sunglasses or the new Gutbuster from Bloop's Burgers in your dreams. Looking forwards though, it will probably be quite hard for adverts to make their way into your dreams, but being able to communicate with a person in their sleep opens new doors for understanding dreams going forwards. So now, instead of just having weird, messed up, freaky dreams, you can have weird, messed up, freaky dreams with someone talking to you from the outside. And, trying to either help you or scare you or something, and it could be terrifying. So, keep an eye out for that. Make sure you know who you're sleeping with, guys and girls. Don't want anyone taking advantage of you in your dreams. Moving on to our next story, and this story actually has to do with a story we've covered in the past. NASA's Perseverance rover lands on Mars successfully and begins its mission of hunting for signs of ancient life on the planet. A few weeks ago, we reported on the NASA Perseverance rover that was making its way through the cold vacuum of space towards Mars. The Perseverance rover is touted to be the most advanced robot ever sent to Mars, and was slated to reach the Mars atmosphere to start its entry maneuvers on February 18th. After a very tense wait in NASA mission control, in which the Perseverance went through its most dangerous maneuver, the men and women back at NASA received confirmation that the rover had made it through its 7 minutes of terror and landed successfully. This car-sized rover is equipped with a wide range of cutting-edge scientific instruments for probing, inspecting, and analyzing Martian samples it collects. Now that Perseverance has made it to the Martian surface successfully, it can now start the mission of searching the ancient lake bed it landed inside for signs of ancient life forms. While Perseverance and many other rovers have made it to the Martian surface, there is one hurdle that still needs to be crossed, and that is getting the samples collected back to Earth. In the history of Earth's space program, there has never once been a vehicle that has made it to Mars that has returned. That is not because they necessarily can't, it's because we haven't tried. Because, launching a rocket to Mars is hard enough, but then launching a rocket from millions of miles away off of a planet and getting it back to Earth is even harder. However, the recovery of the samples are one of the tasks on the burners of all the scientists pursuing these ventures, and one day we will have them back on Earth and be able to analyze soil from another planet. And then after analyzing the soil, we'll release a super virus on the planet and kill everyone. The end. It probably won't happen like that, but there's a good chance it could. I'm sure conspiracy theorists will think it up. Alright, moving on to our next story, and one I am very personally interested in, and we will be getting some of these soon at the laboratory. Singapore creates the best vending machines ever that can dispense salmon, crab, and even cacti for consumers to purchase. Cravings are something that almost everyone has experienced, and cravings are especially strong at 2 a.m. when you really want that unhealthy taco from Taco Bell. Most fast food restaurants, especially in the United States, are open late or even 24 hours a day, so it's quite easy to satisfy your cravings. But what if you wanted something less fast food and more sit-down restaurant? Well, in Singapore you can have exactly that, as there are vending machines all across the city that sell everything from toiletries to Wagyu beef and salmon fillets. Vending machines are a commonplace thing in Singapore, and machines offer hot pizza, bread, curry puffs, and even full-cooked meals. Drinks and snacks still dominate the market in Singapore, but the variety of goods being offered is increasing rapidly. One company has even set up a cafe chain that serves hot local dishes from vending machines. You might ask yourself, why sell a meal of perishable goods in a vending machine instead of at a restaurant front? Well, one of the reasons is that selling products in a vending machine is a great way to test the reception of a product. You have a product, you don't know how much it will be received, how well it will be received, so you can use a vending machine, set your prices for what you think your food costs, and then sell it to consumers and see what they think. On top of that, there also is a much more prevalent interest in automated retail cultures like you see over in Japan. Because who wants to talk to people? Nobody. A good collection of people are still not sure about the increasing popularity of vending machines in Singapore, as it is wildly different than what they are used to. Things from vending machines are generally seen as highly processed and things that rarely ever are fresh to any degree. But if there is enough demand, however, the difference between buying your meal from a person at a restaurant or a vending machine is not that crazy. At least in the US, most fast food restaurants sell some food that could have been made hours before and kept under a warming light. And many things like packaged fish or meats you get from the store are the exact same as if you put them in a refrigerated vending machine. Maybe in the future this will be a more widespread thing across the world, but for now you'll just have to travel to Singapore to get your 2 a.m. salmon fillets, which in my opinion is totally worth it, but that's just me. I'd take the private jet to Singapore every night just to get 2 a.m. salmon fillets. Or Wagyu beef. I love Wagyu beef. If any of you haven't had it, I'm sorry. If you're a vegetarian, I'm sorry. It's the most delicious thing in the world. And it's even more delicious than salmon. And that's saying something. The only thing more delicious than Wagyu beef to me is fatty tuna. So, it's like number 2 on the best thing ever in my taste. Alright, moving on to our last story for today. Has to do with the PS5, because that's just all over the gaming industry. We can't find this PS5, scalpers are terrible, there's this defect, that defect, blah 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 blah. It's almost like, you know, we should just stop releasing consoles and just everyone join the PC master race. Sony faces huge backlash and potential lawsuits over the PS5 DualSense controller drift effect. Or drift defect, it's not an effect. Well, I guess it kind of is an effect, but regardless. The PS5 is somewhat of an enigma these days. It's almost impossible to find one through a legitimate retailer. The only place to really buy a PS5 these days is being an online auction site such as eBay for about an exorbitantly marked up price of $5,000. For those consumers who have gotten a PS5 though, many are starting to run into an issue with the sleek and advanced DualSense controller. The controller is said to be incredible in the way it feels, and the haptic feedback is said to be first of its class when it comes to gaming controllers. However, the $70 controller has a huge flaw that has found its way into an increasing number of DualSense controllers, and that is drift. Now, this is not Tokyo Drift we are talking about, and no, you sadly cannot drift your controllers around parking decks in Tokyo. This drift is a malfunction in a controller design that causes the controller to think one or both of the joysticks are still being actuated even while the thumbstick is completely stationary. Now, usually this can be fixed easily with programs that can correct the drift using software corrections, but as of today there is no such software that exists on the PS5. Now, Sony has stated that this drift malfunction is covered under warranty, but you must pay for shipping to ship the controller back to the Sony repair centers where it will be replaced, possibly with one that just has the same issue. There are people reporting that this has happened as soon as 10 days after receiving a brand new DualSense controller. Now, defects finding their way into consumer products has been around for as long as people have been making things. Even in the medieval times, if you make something over and over again and produce it for people to use, there's always going to be a defect. A sword could be chipped or not, tempered the correct way. A controller could be made to have drift. In consumer electronics, and controllers specifically, drift has always showed up. But usually the number of cases are extremely slim. In most cases, the chance of receiving a defected, high-quality product is much less than 1%. But when the percentage of defects consumers experience grows larger, it becomes a problem. Considering how many people actually own one and are actively using their PS5s, if thousands of consumers are reporting this drift effect, it is a big deal. This also means that thousands of unsold PS5s held in scalpers' houses could have the same defect and no one could ever know. It has become such a problem with the DualSense controller that a formal lawsuit has been established against Sony by a law firm in New York, which before in the past had also created a lawsuit against Nintendo for the Joy-Con drift issue. So if you're looking to buy a PS5 when they become available again, sometime after 2025, keep in mind before you buy that this problem exists, and be sure to do your research before you buy one and see where the issue stands. I mean, who wants to buy a $500 console for $5,000 and end up getting a defective controller? Well, apparently some people. So keep an eye out for that, and hopefully, Sony will get it fixed, or it will be like the Xbox 360 scandal, and they'll release some kind of recall program that ends up being extremely unsuccessful and, not work, and thousands of consumers, millions of consumers will be upset, and, the PS5 stock value and customer satisfaction rate will plummet. We'll just have to see. Alright then, that is our last story for today, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on another exciting episode of the NLBC News. And we only butchered some of the words. Join us next week where we have another round of exciting news stories, and we'll be ushering in the beginning of a new month as we enter our way into March and wait to see if the world is still going to end. So thank you everyone for joining me. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I will see you again next week.